Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have some stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start today, make sure to check out my 3D printing website at dangly3d.com where you can get your hands on your very own Carmen Chameleon, Karma Stories channel mascot. And yes, it comes with cookies. We're releasing 3 new colors of Jumbo Carmen tomorrow, but there's only 3 of each to begin with, so if you want one, you'll have to get on there pretty quickly tomorrow morning. Check it out for yourself at dangly3d.com. Alright, on to today's stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Excellent Singer 8881. School wants consistent uniform? Okay. I went to an all-girls high school, grades 7 to 12, with a mostly lax uniform policy. By this, I mean there was a regulated uniform, but you could accessorize, dye your hair, and wear whatever socks, which was more than what most schools in the area allowed. We made up for this with excellent test scores and good behavior. Well, going into my senior year, year 11, the principal changed and we got stuck with this no-fun, absolute micromanager of a principal who kept trying to switch things up in our, let's be honest, pretty good school. Even the teachers hated her. As an all-girls school, most people wore the skirt and dress, but we always had an option for pants in winter, which most people took advantage of as it got super cold. In senior years, the uniform changes from junior years, so 7 to 10 wear a red and blue tartan dress in summer, and then a tartan pinafore or blue pants plus shirt plus tie in winter. Then, in senior years, it's all year round a blue skirt and short sleeve senior shirt or tartan pants. The senior skirt and shirt combo was cute, and most people wore it correctly during summer. But during winter, most of us would freeze because most people don't want to wear the ugly tartan pants, and wearing tights underneath was ugly too. The old principal let seniors wear blue pants instead, simply because she was nice and could see we were struggling. But when the new principal came in, she immediately stopped this because A, she needed to distinguish between the juniors in blue pants and the seniors, because apparently the very distinct red and white shirts weren't enough, and B, if some people wore tartan pants and some didn't, the uniform wasn't consistent. Well, at first, most people laughed at this, and as it got progressively colder, we stopped wearing the school-provided blue pants, as they were super itchy, and moved on to these blue sweatpants that were honestly basically indistinguishable except for being thicker. The new principal caught wind of this and told us that any seniors caught wearing blue pants would be sent to detention. Our school didn't even have detentions because the students were, for the most part, incredibly well behaved. Well, aside from being well behaved, our student population was also not a fan of dictatorship or misogyny. It was argued that her comments on our clothing were anti-feminist and perpetuated stereotypes of women being told what to wear. It became a whole thing. Our blue sweatpants came from a chain retail store, so we were all wearing the same ones, and they were cheaper and better quality than the school-provided tailored pants, which, may I add, were wool, so itchy, and slim-fitting. Once again, it was argued this was misogynistic because we were forced to either show off our legs or wear skirts. At one point, seniors stopped wearing skirts altogether out of protest, and whenever the principal told someone to go to detention, that student would just point at her entire class and ask if she was going to give us all detention. This enraged the principal, but literally nobody, teacher or pupil, could care less. At one point, the PNC met and they unanimously decided to change the uniform policy to allow seniors to wear blue pants, as it had been allowed before, just not written down. And you can guess who the only holdout was. Then one day, the principal got sick of it, set up all the exam desks in the hall, and made every single senior wearing sweatpants sit in the hall for detention. As I mentioned, we were a high-scoring school, so again, no one minded as we sat quietly and did practice papers in a very realistic environment. The principal started doing random school-wide uniform checks during class time, told all teachers to send down students in wrong uniform, until my math teacher told her she was disrupting our learning time and she should wait until after school. Literally, nothing she could do worked. As we headed back into summer, we started wearing skirts again, which made it easier for the principal to single out sweatpants wearing students, However, another one of my teachers whose daughter went to the school and whose wife was on the P&C board contacted the chain retail store which I mentioned, asked them if they would become our permanent uniform supplier as our contract with the old guys who did pants was ending. We had different suppliers for pants since they were a recent addition to the uniform. So after the spring break, I was one of few seniors still wearing sweatpants, and the principal came over and berated me for wearing pants. Honestly, half of this one-sided conversation was her implying girls shouldn't be wearing pants in the first place, and I should have been wearing a skirt. I simply told her it was literally the uniform now. Safe to say, she got replaced real quick after someone on the P&C got really mad. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Zosted. It says, I have 12 ridiculous years of Catholic school under my belt. To this day, every time I see plaid, I break out in hives. I have a lifelong aversion to tartan because of it. I also have a lifelong aversion to religion, but that's for another post. I love how in this story the teachers got together and they decided they were going to go around the current principal who was being a pain in the butt. They got the retailer for the pants that the kids wanted to wear approved as the official uniform behind the principal's back, and it sounds like they didn't even tell the principal that they did it in the first place. Wow. This story comes to us from Turkey Ninja. Hallways had lanes for students to get them to class faster. I was a teacher at a middle school in 2014-2015 that was a Title I school, extremely low income and test scores. The state government actually removed all administration staff 2 years prior for the whole district as the student outcomes were so low. The new admin came in with a micromanagement authoritarian directive to improve test scores. One of their brightest ideas was to put lanes in the hallways to manage flow and get students to classes faster. There were 3 lanes, 2 one-ways along the walls, and a middle teacher-only lane. Within about 3 days, all the students were driving imaginary cars. They orderly followed one another, would let people in to merge, use turn signals, and generally was pretty fun for a few days. The teachers would direct students at intersections and played along for a bit. The flow did slow down though, as students wouldn't pass each other and would have trouble merging into traffic around doorways. Another thing taking time was the students parking their imaginary vehicles outside the classroom. They would spend time backing them into spaces or have trouble parallel parking. The admin didn't like this and really started getting angry at the staff and students as so many kids were still tardy to class. They actively were handing out detentions and pretty angry at staff for playing along. This really triggered the students to start getting malicious. The students couldn't cross the middle lane, so they would have to walk down long hallways and make U-turns to see their friends or get to their lockers in classrooms. They started cruising the long hallways with their tricked out imaginary lowriders. They would have shock noises even. Some of the really popular kids started a bus system where they had a schedule to pick up other students and deliver them to other classes. They would hold shoulders and move as a block. Sometimes the bus broke down at an intersection and blocked traffic for everyone. Drag racing started where they held up traffic and raced down the hallways. Police would pull people over and write tickets. The most annoying part was students needing to leave the classroom to check on their cars to make sure no one stole it. Sometimes a student would come back from the bathroom and ask if anyone was driving a type of car as it was being towed. The disruptions in class started to really get out of control. Admin thought it was going to be a phase and students would get bored. The best part about school for the students turned out to be the time in between classes. Everyone was tardy constantly. Eventually, the lanes were ripped up and they shortened the passing period time by 2 minutes, so students had to rush to class and couldn't spend any time in the hallways. The cars slowly died out, and the new fad was needing to use the restroom during class time because the passing period was like 3 minutes long and not enough toilets to satisfy all the students legitimately. Students were written up for needing to use the bathroom, so kids just started clogging toilets and peeing wherever. Other car things, flat tires, emergency sirens, car accidents, GPS problems, no gas, lost license, couldn't find keys, stole other kids' cars, repo cars, and towing cars. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called CoderJoe1. It says, "Sorry I was late. I couldn't find an outlet for my imaginary electric car because some jerk with an imaginary Escalade parked in front of the only outlets." Okay, I absolutely love this story. The kids were having fun in the hallways, and some of the teachers were getting involved as well. They should have used this as a learning opportunity. They could have had those kids optimizing traffic, city planners, that kind of thing, making everything flow properly. But they had to be party poopers and make it all go away. Ugh. I wish when I was in school that we did something like this. It would have made the day a lot more fun than the crappy school experience that I had. This story comes to us from Red Apples for Break. Wanna go for a walk? It had been a hot summer day, but by this point it was early evening. The temperature was going down, and there was a nice breeze. So when my boyfriend asked what we should do this evening, I suggested we go out for a walk. He was a little hesitant, but with some light prodding, he reluctantly agreed. We decided to go to Island Park, not its real name, which is a large city park wildlife sanctuary that spreads across 1,200 acres with 30 miles of paths along 9 different loops. It's a popular spot in our town, but large enough to still feel secluded. As we're parking, he's grumbling a bit about how we always go to this park. How far are we going to go out? It's going to be hot, etc., etc. We get about a half-mile out, and he asks me how far we plan to go. I don't know. Would you like to turn back? No, it's fine, he says, and we continue on. I decide to follow his lead, since it sounds like he'll likely want to end the walk before I do, which is fine. We go a little further, and we're starting to reach portions of the park I'm not familiar with. But my boyfriend used to jog in this park all the time, and so he knows the paths better than I do. Does this path loop around? I ask, and he assures me that it does. We continue on for another mile, and we're in a part of the park I didn't even know existed. Well, yeah, he admits, I took you out the long way so you would regret making me go on this walk. Oh, malicious compliance. If I wanted to go on a walk, he was going to make sure it was a long one. He wanted my feet to hurt and my legs to ache, so I'd think twice before asking him to go out in nature again. Let me tell you, this path was beautiful. The trees were tall and luxurious, the views were outstanding, and the birds were singing their hearts out. I couldn't have been happier. Then, he got lost and we ended up walking 4 miles to get to the parking lot. But it was a great walk and a fun adventure. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go ice my foot while I watch 7 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So, OP, you mean to tell me that you just said on Reddit that your boyfriend's a bit of a butthead, and then you mentioned that you're gonna go home and watch some Star Trek? All the nerds on Reddit right now are going, woman who likes Star Trek, and your inbox is going to be full. Well done. Keep dragging that guy out into the wilderness. It sounds like he needs the walks, and you deserve the time together, right? This story comes to us from Who Knew I'd Like It. Paperwork not good enough the first time? No problem. We will do it again, but you're paying. Years ago, I worked in an isolated location, all energy industry related. Due to the extent of the isolation, the client company had its own medical facilities, one of which I worked in. So one contract company had a thing about needing excessive paperwork for their guys who were sick. See, the medical care was a line item in the client company budget, so nobody saw a bill. This made for a system that was easily abused, what with no financial dog in the fight. So this one company's guys would come in periodically, appropriately sick. They weren't burning time, they only made money on duty, so they wanted to work. We'd see them and often give a day or two of bed rest before returning to work. Everyone there was typically on a 2-week tour of duty due to logistics, so a day or two like this wasn't uncommon or unreasonable. Patient would be seen, given a note for the boss, go get some rest and take your meds. But that wasn't good enough. Maybe for every other contractor, but no, this contractor was special. So even though they'd been seen by qualified medical staff and given prescriptions and a note on when they could return to work, this company wanted them evaluated again and another note saying they could actually go back on duty, even if it was 12 to 24 hours since the first visit. Remember, no cost, so what do they care, right? This didn't sit well with us. We had long hours and busy days. often 18 to 24 hours awake and on duty, with a 2-week tour of duty. And this was BS paperwork and time wasting because someone felt like it, not because it was medically necessary. If we'd seen the patient and given you a note on when they can go back on duty, my due diligence was done. So we decided after a couple of months of this pattern to accommodate them on our terms. Guys would come in ready and willing to go back to work, but still needing another note, because apparently the first one wasn't nearly good enough and the boss said so. So they'd get one on our terms. After we'd see all the morning sick call patients, after our scheduled morning appointments, they'd be on the clock until we saw them again, sitting in our waiting room, on the clock and drinking coffee, which was typically around 3 hours after the clinic opened. Each and every one of them, which was typically 2 to 3 guys every day. They were a big contractor. They were surprisingly slow to pick up on it. Took about a month of this approach, and once they put it all together, they were pissed. Clearly, we were wasting their time and ours. What the F did it matter? We were on duty and the care was free, so F our opinion. But our bosses backed us 100%, essentially saying, if you went to your doctor and paid for a visit, would you pay again to be told the same thing the next day? After that, the paperwork from medical staff was honored the first time, and everyone's workdays were more efficient. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Petal Honey Babe. It says, that was the slowest, most polite screw you I've ever seen. Beautiful work. Funnily enough, this just sounds like the triage system that we have here in the Canadian hospitals. Because if you go in and you're not dying, you'll be sitting in that waiting room for a very long time. Like I'm talking, you could be there 8-10 hours before they actually see you. Triage for the win. Alright, I think we'll end this episode here. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. Check out dangly3d.com for your very own Carmen Chameleon. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.